Thank you for having me today. It's been a great day to be at the Farm Bureau Convention. We got 500 from Kentucky here, so I feel like I'm at home. But I'll start with questions. We've had a lot of questions today from the media about industrial hemp, but I'll answer any question you have. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
That was created in the 14 bill by, it seems like everybody and their dog now wants to get into the growing hemp.
Mm-hmm.
Is there enough true market going to be there for, I feel like hops a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going to grow hops. Well, now we read stories, guys can't sell hops because there's too much of it. That's the
Right.
comparison.
I'm a farmer, and I think any farmer would say this. We in agriculture are very good at overproducing things. So with any emerging industry, there are risks, and I've said that today. We had the hemp workshop earlier today, and it was very well attended. If you didn't go by and see that, we can show you pictures. I would go venture out and say it was as well attended as any workshop that Farm Bureau had this session. So there's a lot of interest in it. That shows to me that there's a huge demand for an alternative crop, with the price of soybeans and the price of corn right now. It's a challenge to be a farmer. So there are companies that are coming in Kentucky that, in my opinion, are very well capitalized, that will endure every challenge that comes their way. And there are some companies that I probably wouldn't buy stock in that are in Kentucky. And I think that's the case with any emerging industry and any startup, because all the, most of these companies are startups. So I caution farmers. I get a text almost every day from a farmer somewhere in Kentucky saying, what about this hemp? I'm thinking about growing this hemp. And I say, it's risky. You need to make sure you have confidence in the person you're signing a contract with. And if you do not sign a contract, then I wouldn't grow it. Yes, sir.
Jerry Hagstrom from the Hagstrom Report. We talked the other day. So I was at the workshop, and I heard Ken Anderson say, "Don't grow this crop if you don't have a place to sell it."
Right.
So, considering that it can now be grown nationally, how are these farmers supposed to find out who will buy hemp?
Well, you can call the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, and they will give you information. I would assume most state departments of agriculture would have that available. And the Farm Bill says you can grow hemp. I'm paraphrasing here. I'm a country boy. You can grow hemp in states that have already passed regulatory framework to grow states. We've made hemp legal in all 50 states to sell and to transport and things like that. But you can still only grow hemp in a state that's passed a regulatory framework. So there are still states that haven't passed it, so they won't be able to grow it.
There were a lot of right steps taken, going back to your days as Commissioner of Agriculture and getting the framework set up. So there are a lot of things in place right now that can help guide farmers and states through that process.
Absolutely.
That we wouldn't have had
Right.
several years ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, there were a lot of myths when we were first pushing the hemp bill. People were saying, oh, you can grow hemp on a rock in the desert. I think somebody used that expression earlier, and that's not exactly right. It's like every other agriculture crop. You have to have proper soil type, proper water, proper plant at the right time, harvest at the right time. I think we've learned a lot. I think Kentucky's been the leader in that. We've had universities, Murray State, which is in my congressional district, done some really good research on basic production agriculture. Which variety grows best on which type of soil, which piece of equipment can you harvest it. I remember the first year there was a university that used an old bar and sickle. You all know what that is, an old bar and sickle to cut some hemp that was way too mature. And remember, they used to make rope from hemp. So it tore the bar and sickle all to pieces because those fibers wrapped around the bar and sickles. There's a reason they used hemp to make rope. So, I think we've come a long way from a production standpoint. But I do have concerns about overproduction. I have concerns about some companies that may not have the best business plan. But I tell you, when you're talking about is it economically viable, I don't go in any retail stores anymore where I don't see, especially in Kentucky, where they have different hemp products. The CBD oil is in every pharmacy, every independent pharmacy in the state. This is something that I think is really a hot item in a lot of Appalachian states now because we have a terrible opioid problem. And we have to rethink how we treat pain in America. We need alternative sources of pain relief that are from non-addictive sources. So the old business model, if you have pain, we're going to write you a prescription for a pharmaceutical pain pill. That business model hasn't worked very well in a lot of rural Appalachian counties in America. CBD is, I think, one of the options to look at pain relief. So that product is growing by leaps and bounds. The people that are in that business in Kentucky, their sales are going up every day. You're seeing more, I think Katie Moyer talked about it, more of the products used in the beauty industry. And I just think that it's, right now, I think we're on the right scale, but it's like with anything else in agriculture, any business, you worry about overproduction, Jeff.
Jamie, what about the FDA and the official approval of
Right.
CBD oil for what
Yeah.
it's being advertised as?
That's their next battle, the FDA, because towards the end of the Farm Bill, it seemed like some of the pharmaceutical lobbyists started asking questions about it. To me, that's a red flag. I'm pro-business, I'm a Republican, but I have concerns about the pharmaceutical industry. And right now, CBD is what's called a nutraceutical. That means they're not approved by the FDA. The pharmaceutical companies, in my opinion, are going to start pushing to see that CBD is approved by the FDA because the sales are so high. It's not, I think in the beginning they thought it was going to be a fad. Now, and for the record, I take the CBD oil myself. And a lot of members of Congress do. When I stood up in the Republican conference and was talking about my hemp bill, dozens of members of Congress said, come here. I take that CBD oil too. I said, you do? They said, yeah. I said, can I talk about that? And they were like, hell no. So, but I don't know why. But a lot's changed since the Farm Bill's passed and it's legal. But that'll be a battle for that. That won't affect hemp. There's a big difference in hemp. It's a totally different plant. The plant they make CBD from is, it was said today, a horticulture a plant. It's horticulture. The grain, the fiber, that's agriculture. So it's totally different. Two totally different industries within the same industry, sub-industries, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Is it frustrating to be a farmer sitting on the agriculture committee to go through 2 years of due process and get a farm bill and now waiting for regulations?
Yes.
To be written to implement?
Yes. Very frustrating. I'm very ashamed that we have a government shutdown. In my rural district, as you can imagine, there's strong support for the wall. I voted for the wall twice so far. We'll continue to vote for the wall. That's, I believe that would help. I believe that the majority of people in my district support that. But at the end of the day, you have to govern. And if you don't have the votes, you don't have the votes. And that's what's different. The few rural members of Congress are different than the urban and suburban members of Congress. As you can imagine, there are overwhelmingly more urban and suburban members of Congress than rural members. But at the end of the day, I think the rural members want to come together, just like on the Farm Bill. I would have preferred to have had more requirements on food stamps. There were a couple of things in the Farm Bill that I thought didn't belong in there. But at the end of the day, I wanted to pass a Farm Bill, and I'm smart enough to know that I'm not going to get everything I want. With 535 members of Congress, it's going to be impossible to get everything you want. The rural legislators, whether they're Democrat or Republican, in my opinion, realize that and really want to govern. The suburban and urban ones are, to the radical, the left, right. We're drawing a line in the sand. If I can't get the third line and page 263 changed to the way I want it, I'm voting against the bill. And that's what happens with every piece of legislation. And I've always studied the Farm Bill when I was a farmer and state representative and commissioner of agriculture. That bill is getting tougher and tougher to pass in Congress. It's just a hard piece of legislation to pass. It failed again in the House the first time this year, like it did 5 years ago. And it's just a hard piece of legislation that, unfortunately, we're just going to have to depend on all the ag commodity groups to come in and save the day like they did this year. Yeah.
Congressman, Ron Hayes out of Oklahoma City Radio, Oklahoma Network, and by the way, grew up in Woodford County, tobacco farmer.
Okay.
Son. This latest language that was in the 18 law that basically moves industrial hemp over to the regulation by USDA.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to that 2014 language that basically established these experimental alliances with universities, licensing individual producers?
Well, it's this law's the new law of the land, so it takes precedence. And we've evolved. 5 years ago, these were pilot projects. Now this is a viable, growing industry. So the USDA will have the jurisdiction. I plan on meeting with several people at the USDA. I've already had some talks with USDA people about regulations. I'm personally not crazy about federal crop insurance being applicable to hemp. I didn't really want that. I want that known for the record. But I think that we're going to have to sit down and make sure that the people at the USDA understand the industry. I'm not going to sit here and exaggerate and say they were enthusiastically happy about having to do all this with hemp, but that's the Farm Bill, and they're going to abide by the Farm Bill. But I've had some initial conversations with some of the Secretary's top people, but I'm going to continue to do that, and hopefully we can get the regulatory framework set up that'll benefit the taxpayers and benefit the farmers. Well, I just don't want to, if there is overproduction, I don't want there to be massive losses with hemp and read bad stories about hemp. Again, we need to make sure that the people that are growing hemp have a contract to sell their hemp. That would be a good regulation with the USDA and some other commodities too, but mainly. I think that would be a good regulation. Yes, sir. I think so. A lot of the universities in Kentucky have been surprised at the private sector dollars they've gotten to help fund research projects. And that gets universities really interested in doing research. So as the industry grows and as they become more profitable, I think you'll see a lot more interest from the universities in doing research projects. And with the Farm Bill, that's one of the things that I mentioned at the workshop, that technically the people that were growing hemp, if you're an insurance company, if you're a bank, you look, what all do you have in your farming operation? Well, I grow corn, I grow soybeans, and then I've got some hemp. Well, hemp was a controlled substance. So by their rules, they're not supposed to insure you, or they're not supposed to loan you money for your line of credit because you're growing a controlled substance. So there were issues with PayPal for some of the hemp companies that were selling products online because PayPal said, this is a controlled substance. We're not supposed to take the money. So this is a huge issue that the marijuana companies are having in Colorado, Oregon, and California. But we fixed it to where you're not ineligible for FSA, federal crop insurance now, if you grow hemp. Technically, if you had an overzealous bureaucrat at the USDA, they could say, well, wait a minute, you're growing a controlled substance. That's not, you can't have crop insurance on your corn and soybeans because you're growing a controlled substance. So that all had to be clarified, and the Farm Bill does that. So no one will be able to be punished from their financial institution, whether it's an insurance company, whether it's a bank or whomever, because they're growing an agriculture crop, whereas before it was a controlled substance. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.